Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And Blizzard has released the final cutoff of class changes that are moving into patch 12.1, what is actually going to be official upon release. So in today's video, I wanted to cover some of the major changes that you're definitely going to want to know about, whether or not it's how it's going to impact your class or potentially impact your decision making towards a class. This type of information is going to be very vital for that. And as always, if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button as well. Your support is greatly appreciated. So the first set of changes we're going to look at are strictly PvP focused because these are impacting a lot of major mechanics that were very annoying in a lot of circumstances with regards to PvP and are actually improving the game significantly. So the first major change in PvP is that players who are affected by crowd controls such as fear and disorient will now be immune to knockback. So you won't be able to get a full fear thunderstorm or something like that, or a sleepwalk, and a knockback from the Drakthir racial. These effects will no longer work. And this is to prevent players from falling through the floor and to prevent players from disconnecting. So hopefully there's going to be a significant reduction in that, because obviously there were a lot of evokers, particularly I think, abusing this. And this also means that Blade's Edge Arena is going to be able to return to play as an arena map. It was taken out because people were falling through the map, and it was because of this mechanic. So that major pain point is now removed. But it's important to note that you should make sure if you want to knock somebody back with like a thunderstorm, don't do it when they're in a fear. It's not going to do anything. The Trinket set bonuses are changing. This is mostly noted because they're increasing stamina across the board for the whole game by like 25%. So this change to this Trinket bonus, you might look at it and be like, wait, they're actually nerfing stamina? What's going on? I'm getting one shot. But that's not actually what's going on. So the primary stat previously was 12. It's going up to 15. So there's going to be a little bit more damage and throughput. Stamina is going down by 5% on this, but it's going 25% overall. So it's still like, I'm not good at math, somewhere in between 20 and 18% or something like that. Stamina is still higher technically. So the likelihood of one shots is hopefully going to be reduced. And I do anticipate that if it isn't immediately upon release, that we will see changes week to week, which is why it's a great reason to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with those changes as they move along, as they usually do at that point, because that's when they're going to get the most amount of data of stuff, whether it was bugs, something that slipped through, or something unexpected, that type of deal. But their goal is to hopefully not have it be where nobody's taking any damage, which is why they've also done this, which is nerfing healing, or healers, or people will receive 20% less healing in Battlegrounds. Battleground pacing is very slow outside of like some very egregious one-shots, and their goal is to address those one-shots and remove them. So hopefully you won't need that like knee-jerk reaction instant healing. But then if the one-shots aren't there, then people might not ever die. So this is like a preliminary cautionary move by them to make sure that matches can actually end, particularly in Battleground environment. And it's been feedback from a lot of players as well that the pacing in Battlegrounds feels slow, like significantly slower. And also, when you play Shuffle, a lot of the games are going to like 60 to 80% dampening, and Battlegrounds don't have that type of healing reduction. So this is again to try and address the fact that stamina is going up, pacing is slowing down, while still keeping the game interesting and entertaining. Now, this is a change that I really like here, is that they are going to be trying to reduce win trading and queue manipulation by giving you a debuff when you miss a queue. So typically right now, like for example on my stream, I'll queue up for Shuffle. If I go to the bathroom and come back and the queue popped and it disappeared, I can just queue up again. But now I'll get a debuff. So it's important that you use the follower dungeons if you're going to do this. If you're ever going to leave the computer while you're in a queue, put yourself into a follower dungeon. It'll pause your queue and then come back, leave the dungeon, and then you'll be right back in line where you were. I'm going to have to get used to doing that. I'm probably going to screw that up, but you should note to do that. Otherwise, you're going to get a debuff that will stack as you miss more and more queues. And this is to prevent players from trying to sync up with each other so that they can rig matches, grief other players, and the like. And it's already starting to happen a lot actually in these last couple of days. I wish that this could almost be implemented now, because it's actually very egregious. But I'm glad that it's happening at all, right? Like this is a very good change to prevent that. But as an individual player are going to want to note that you'll want to use a follower dungeon to prevent your queue from popping if you're going to AFK. Otherwise, you're already long queue time. Now you're going to get a debuff. So don't do that. They are also going to be increasing Spoils of War, which is the conquest that you get later in the season, to 50% more conquests to help players who are transitioning into PvP later on or want to play alts, which is great for catch-up mechanics. and maybe it might not even be enough, to be honest. Maybe it should be faster, because I really don't. I think a lot of players, especially at the halfway point of the season, like, we don't want to gatekeep the content. We want people to get over and be able to jump in right away without feeling like they're super behind. Although at the beginning of the season, it's great. You gear up every week. You equip some new pieces. You feel like you're getting stronger. But there's always that like mid-season point where it's like, yeah, just blow the doors open, let everybody get everything, and get in there and kind of just jam with what they want. But this is better than nothing. Definitely going to improve participation later, which is mostly PvE players who get, they're done with their dungeons, they're done with their raids, and they want to transfer over. This should help them be able to transfer over and get into PvP, which is, I think, very nice. And then across the board, they are nerfing the strength of movement impairing effects. So if you've played PvP in recent expansions, you have Chains of Ice on you or a Frost Mage, you would know that you walk very, very slowly, and it's very annoying. And I've been very adamantly against it since they implemented in Battle for Azeroth. Basically in Legion, they made a PvP decision that was like, okay, slows shouldn't be above 50% that can last indefinitely or are passive. And they nerfed that. Legion was really good. And then BFA, they reverted all of the PvP changes because it was the philosophy that Classic WoW was better because it didn't have PvP changes. So we're going to implement that philosophy here in BFA. Some of that probably not true. Probably most of that was not true. And now finally the snares are getting nerfed, so we're not going to be roleplay walking across the map. So for Death Knights, that means Chains of Ice is going down to 50%, Enfeeble is going down to 20, Grip of the Dead movement 90 down to 60, so very significantly reduced. Like Chains of Ice is basically hamstring now. A lot of the passive snares are only 20%. Everything is down to 50% or lower basically as a baseline for every single specialization. So every single passive, Typhoon, Ursula's Vortex, everything, the Feral Lunge even, and Thorns even, like these random things. Boomkin is getting some Dispel protection, which is nice. This is something that I've been wanting to actually have put into the game for a while. I don't know how impactful it's going to be. It depends on how much damage it does, and relative to health bars could end up being very non-consequential, but it's definitely better than nothing. And maybe, based on feedback, they'll increase the damage, maybe or reduce it depending on how strong it is. But Boomkin has been needing this a long time coming, so I'm really glad that it's getting this. It's making me more excited to try it. And they did remove some PP talents along with that were just not going to be too effective. And I think this is good that they're doing this. I think that there's a lot of PP talents that are either completely dead weight or need to be updated to have their numbers tuned more appropriately for health pools in the current pacing of the game, because they're just kind of irrelevant. And a lot of those talents used to be really fun. Like the Fell Tyrant, where you summon the guy that Bladestorms is spinning an axe around. Like, he used to be a lot more threatening. Feels like he's not that threatening anymore. They did buff some of them, particularly I think it was the Fire Circle for Warlocks. It still doesn't really do that much damage. Still don't think it's really worth taking it. But hopefully they'll do a pass on making the PP talents more exciting to pick up again, because a lot of them have just like lost all of their character or dipped completely into irrelevancy. Resto Druid is looking like a really strong healer. Just overall, they've tried to nerf it a bit in PvP, but the changes in the buffs that it's getting from PvE are just so significant, and it's seen the Ancient of Lore returning as well. So you can go immune to crowd control effects once again through the PvP talents with this. Resto Druid is looking like a really good go-to. Probably like the healer to be, are my expectations at the moment. Evoker is getting Sledgehammer nerfed. We saw they're fixing the disconnects. They're removing swoop, so you can't get picked up and disconnected either. They're reducing all of your movement, impairing suppression, which is significantly reduced. You move like a ghost wolf now, basically, when you get slowed. So you're not just going to be sprinting across the map with the flag for free, hopefully as a result of this. So significant reductions to their potency, at least in battleground settings, and hopefully less frustrating with all of their disconnects. A lot of Hunter players are very happy with Scattershot returning, and a lot of their core damage is looking really good, and the reworks towards their specializations. Although my recent experience in Survival wasn't particularly great, but I think I'm not great at it. My talent build was probably not awesome, but like Marksman Hunter has turned out really good. BM is just still solid as it was, and hopefully Survival will end up in that spot as well. But it seems like mostly the feedback that I've seen from Hunter has been very positive, and it looks like it's very exciting. For Mage, they're buffing a lot of, like, again, PP talents like Arcanosphere. Might want to pick this up for some cheesy plays. They are nerfing Overpowered Barrier, but you should note that like your stamina is going up, so like it's somewhat compensated for. And I don't know if their intent for this is that it is lower than it is in the current patch, or if it's just the same, but because stamina is higher, you got to move these numbers around. I don't know what the intent is, because all mage specializations are going to be getting 2 barriers also. So that's like a buff to Arcane and a buff to Fire, even if it absorbs a little bit less. Being able to time them independently of each other is going to be very significant. They are increasing the cooldown of Mass Invisibility as well. So hopefully mages aren't going to be going invisible 24/7 while absorbing infinite amounts of damage. I think is like the ideal goal here, and Arcane is seeing some reworks to its damage potential, its damage potency, and they are removing the blink invisibility from Arcane. So instead, when your barrier is fully absorbed, you'll get Time Warp, you get Bloodlust. That sounds pretty cool, as opposed to the like disappearing and resetting your diminishing return trackers when you go into stealth, and just being annoying to try and track and messing up your UI. Like those two things are very annoying pain point, as well as preventing you from dying for the 2 seconds that you are able to go into invisibility. But hopefully the damage compensation will aid you with some of the removal of these types of effects. Frost Mage, not a lot here in the PP section, but it's probably the most impacted spec when it comes to snare suppression, because Frost Mage just has the most snares. I think Frost Mage and Death Knight are likely to be the ones that you're going to see the most significant loss in power. Holy Paladin getting a 15% healing nerve, and it's because it's getting giga buffed for PvE. It's getting so many buffs. It probably still has really crazy throughput. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that. Like Holy Paladin and Resto Druid, I think, are going to be kind of the ones to go for. Retribution Paladin is getting Eternal Flame Healing reduced. We'll have to wait and see if not being compensated on your damage ends up actually leading to any significant loss here for Retribution Paladin. I do see a lot of Ret Paladins very worried about it and concerned for its viability, because right now that's the main thing that is making it viable, is that it heals a lot. It's able to drag games on, but they are aware that game lengths are getting a little bit egregious in terms of duration, so they're probably trying to snip out some culprits of that prior to that point. And like I said, I think that will likely compensate should it be necessary. Ret Paladin ended season 1 is like the most popular melee by like miles as far as its performance. Void Weaver is receiving some nerfs for Discipline Priest, so might not be able to completely just one-shot people by yourself. Shadow Priest is getting a lot of cool reworks on the PvE side of things, although right here it's just snare reductions. But on the PvE side of things, Shadow Priest is getting a lot of cool stuff. Hopefully it's going to be more viable. I think it's still missing a bit in its kit as far as lockdown, but its damage profile, I think, is going to be either the same or probably better than it was. Now, surprisingly here, this is a major one, is that Crippling Poison is going down to 30%. This is very major because Crippling Poison was so strong. But if you shiv it, it can go up to 50. But Assassination is the only class in the game that will have a 70% snare. So System Shock was 90 before. It's the only one. Actually, that's not true, apparently, because Shaman, I don't even know what this is. What the heck is Enfeeble Movement? Oh, no, wait. It was 70. Sorry, yeah. No, I'm right. System Shock is the only 70% slow. So this might be a very desirable talent. This is one way of making some of those PvP talents that were lacking identity or core use more viable. So definitely take that. Assassination is getting a lot of good updates as well in the class overhaul for it across the game, broadly speaking. So something just to check out, something to keep your eye on there. Gormaw's Bite is also making a return for subtlety. So you're going to get a little bit more spice in your rotation. Now, they are aware that Dark Pact is going to be very strong. So dampening is now actually going to affect the amount of health that it sacrifices. Doesn't that mean it's going to be stronger? Did I interpret this wrong before? Because like, you're supposed to sacrifice your baseline health to get a shield, but if it's reducing the health you sacrifice, you should technically get more of a shield for less health. Or maybe it's just making it equal because it absorbs less, and now it also will do less. The wording on this is a bit strange. I am thinking Warlock is going to be really good at the start because of the percent-based healing that it has. Hellstone and Dark Pact in particular, but some passive effects as well. And his damage profile looks really good right now for Destruction and Affliction. Even Demonology is not too bad. It's definitely lower, but not too bad. They are buffing the Bonds of Fel. Hey, this is the thing that I was just talking about. And they're updating the visual. We like that. Again, I think in PvP, updating, just doing a PvP talent pass, making the talents cool again or exciting to go check out, like some things like Greater Pyroblast or maybe Greater Heal for Holy Priests, like abilities that had like a cheeky flavor or something, like bringing back some of their identity, making the visuals more clear. I think these are great. I mean, this is what's improved Mythic Plus, right? So applying the same logic there over to PvP, I think is a good way to resurrect people's interest in it, because the PvP talents are the things that is unique to PvP, where you can only try those fun effects in that environment. So it kind of sucks if a lot of the talents have kind of just faded. Like, they were kind of crazy good, so they sledgehammered them, and then they've just dipped into obscurity for a long time, and people basically forgot that they existed at that point. Warrior damage profiles look really good right now, but again, mostly here the PvP side of things is just snare reductions. I am interested with the UI changes here, because they are, relinquishing for accessibility reasons. You might see more cooldown trackers or add-ons possibly in the mix. You want to keep your eye on that. There's already kind of quite a few of it. And they also added the ability to change raids, debuffs, and buffs. So they're making the enemy buffs and debuff nameplate a big debuff by default, which is great. Again, out-of-the-box experience, trying to improve that is good. You can move the loss of control effects now. There was one specific effect though. It was like raid buffs and debuffs, because I've been complaining about it for so long. Somewhere in here, you're going to be able to shrink buffs or increase debuffs, so hopefully they're not occupying as much space. I think a lot of the debuffs in PvP need to be looked at just like not even being displayed. Like, I don't need to see 5 different poison stacks on a rogue. Like, 1 stack is enough. Or like all of these like little tiny 20% slows that proc and show up on the raid frame. Like, I don't really need to see that over like a Frost Nova, like a Root. I don't need to see that. You could probably get those off the bar entirely if you wanted to try and improve the surface area of those. But the main point is that they are addressing a lot of the main issues of the game. Mind control still seems to be an issue though, even though I saw something on Twitter that they said they fixed it, but no, apparently it's not. Mind control is such a tragic ability because it's like such a core fun ability where it's like you get to run somebody off a cliff in the game and they chase you the rest of the game trying to go after you when you do that. It's a really cheeky ability, and it sucks that it's so buggy, and if they end up having to just completely remove it like they have with Swoop, or some other type of mind control effect, like maybe turning it into Sleepwalk, except it walks at an enemy target instead of walking at you as the ally. So it just tries to auto attack its teammate for a couple of seconds, like a Sleepwalk or something. I don't know. But maybe they're going to have to, because it's like, it's the most game breaking bug, right? It's not like it's like, oh, you're missing 1% of this stat, or this is doing slightly not the right thing. It's like it completely bricks your game. Your action bar doesn't work and it disconnects you. Like, it's like just core fundamental effect, but at the same time a lot of classes are designed around utilizing it in its current design form. So if you can't fix it, or it's just I don't know what's going on with it, but it's going to be tough. But that seems to still be an issue, but a significant portion of the other things seem to be addressed. And so long as they don't sledgehammer nerf MMR at the start of the season, so we're all 1500 rating and can't climb at all unless you're WAS, it looks a lot better. Looks like it should be a lot better. And then, of course, individual tuning of classes depending on pacing and viability. That's something that I expect that they'll continue to do, as they have for this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this final update. Thank you guys very much for tuning in, as always, and I will see you in the next one.